Good morning, students. Welcome to the lesson called Introduction to Educational Research on the Diploma in Primary School Education. My name is Ndinelao Rachel Shanyanana, and I'm the tutor for this course. You can reach me to my cell phone number as it appears, and you are welcome to follow as we continue on the module. Firstly, it is necessary that we do an introduction to what Introduction to Educational Research entails. It is one of the Open Learning Diploma in Primary Education modules, and it introduces educators to the important aspect of education, which is research. There are different themes that will be covered to ensure that the educator is well grounded and informed. And the educators or students are required to do constant reading and thinking for a successful completion of this course. There are 5 exit learning outcomes that are central in this module. One is for the educator or student to explain the basic concepts and characteristics of IER. 1. 2. To discuss the characteristics of qualitative and quantitative educational research. 3. To explain the design and implementation of data gathering tools within each method. 4. To explain the techniques for data analysis. And 5. To explain the components of and compile a research proposal. So these are the 5 units that students are required to complete and to be able to understand. We will deal with each of these units as we proceed unpacking the Introduction to Educational Research. And the overall aim of this module is to enable students to understand the theory and application of research, to develop the theoretical understanding, values, and competencies within educational research. So the purpose is for a student to understand firstly the meanings attached to the concept and how do we apply it in our daily research practice. So today we are going to deal with Unit 1, which is Introduction to Research. Unit 1 has also learning outcomes. 1 is to understand the concept research. What is the word research entails? 2nd, under the understanding of the concepts, then we have the meanings of educational research. We have the understanding of educational research as a scientific method, and to also understand social science paradigms or frameworks or methods that are used in this research, and also be able to understand the significance and importance of educational research for educators. So this is one of them. So before we get to the concept research, it is necessary to look at what different views or misconceptions that are out there about research. Some are saying research is difficult and is only undertaken by scholars and professors. That's a misconception. Another one is this research is only done by institutions, not by individuals. 3, it requires high academic knowledge and skills. These are all misconceptions. It is quite acceptable to modify data if it does not look exactly correct. So these are also is another misconception. The 4th one is, or 5th, it is only conducted in places designed for a particular research purpose. Some are also saying it requires separate time to do this kind of research. There is no practical use for research, as if it's just research for its own sake. It's not to improve or to change. Some are saying research needs a lot of resources and funding. And others are saying teaching and learning are two different undertakings and are not necessarily there to augment or to support each other. The last one there, some are saying finding of action research resolve all problems. It seems research is there to solve all problems. These are some of the misconceptions that the world put there. But for us to deal with these misconceptions, we need to understand the concept research itself. We continue. So what is the meaning behind the idea of research? So there are different meanings attached to the concept research. And one of them is that is a systematic study that is carried out to find and report in the search for existing or new knowledge about a subject or an issue in education. So it's a systematic, well-planned study that is carried out. Secondly, another meaning is a careful and critical investigation or inquiry in the search for new facts. So that's also another meaning for research. So it's again a critical investigation, carefully done to find new facts. Another view is a systematic attempt to provide answers to questions. So research could be defined differently. The last one is a systematic materials and sources is a systematic analysis of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. So you can see there are different meanings attached to the concept research, and we can always tell which concept or which meaning is really speaking to our understanding. And that is a systematic, critical investigation and inquiry done to be able to find possible answers for a particular problem. So B, we are moving to the meanings of educational research. So the previous one was just on the idea of research itself. But here we are talking about educational research. It means research that are done in education. So an educational research, which I call ER, entails a field of study that deals with the methods and problems of teaching and learning. So here we are dealing with systematic investigation in the field of education to find problems and possibly find solutions or ways of bettering our teaching and learning. It is also a process or an action of educating or being educated. So this is also another aspect. So in this case, if you are doing introduction to educational research in open learning, you are learning on how to do research. But there's also another element whereby you need now to do research after learning how to do it. So these are two aspects to it. You learn it and then you do it. We continue with ER, educational research. We say it is a systematic process, we mentioned that already. It's an activity that is directed toward the development of science that assists with identification of educational problems and find possible solutions to the problems. So the other element that we are dealing with is, why do we need to do educational research? Why? What is the purpose? What is the hidden agenda of educational research? There are different agendas. One is to describe a particular occurrence or phenomena, which you call occurrence or event, within the educational structures, activities, change over time, or relationship between an event and others. So the aim is to bring better understandings of events that happen within educational sector. For example, if, let's say, after independence, the Namibian government introduced different educational systems, and time to time, they have changed over time. As we are talking last year or previous years, people started talking about free primary education. It's a new way of, or let's say is a phenomena, is an event that happened within the system of education, which you call the structure. And when that change or introduction of free education comes, so the way of teaching might also have been affected. So now we look, when we are doing research, we are looking at the event that happened, how it has happened, what kind of change that happened, and what is the relationship between what have changed and what is there. So this is just to understand, describing what is there with the purpose of understanding the change. Secondly, for predicting. So predicting a phenomena or an event, it means what happens, what will happen in the future. To predict is to look in the future. What will happen in the future based on the current event. We gave an example of an introduction to free education in Namibia. So that we look in predicting, we look at how the introduction of free education contribute to a particular event in the future. So in other words, we look at what has happened and how that affecting the future occurrence. For example, we are looking at the aptitude test, the test we give to students perhaps in entering a particular grade or a particular school to determine their performance when we happen to admit them in the school. In most schools, children have to be interviewed for them to be admitted. It means when we test them, we test the levels of mathematics, English, language, and so forth, we are looking at whether they will be able to perform better. So we are predicting. So the test will predict the future performance of that child. The third agenda is to improving. It means we look at the program. I gave you an example of free education. And we look at how that program enables students or educators to come up with better ways of perhaps improving education. In this case, we look at grade 10 failure and how educators can come up with better ways of enabling students to pass very well. Perhaps introducing what we call weekend studies or camping, which is common in most schools in Namibia. So by doing that, we are trying to look at how do we improve what we have. In this case, maybe failure in grade 10. So improving the current system. And again, you can also take an example of teachers being encouraged to go to further studies. And this is what you are doing in IOL, whereby you are encouraged to study so that you will be able to acquire knowledge, and that knowledge will be able to help you to improve your teaching and learning. So another research is to check, another agenda of research is to improve the system. The fourth one is to explain. Explaining goes hand in hand with describing. And, but explaining is beyond or has covered all the aspects of research. So we explain the phenomena, the change, in this case, introduction to free education in Namibia, and predicting the possible outcomes of introducing the system, and coming up with better ways of promoting or improving the performance in schools. So in explaining, you are covering everything. You are looking at what has happened or what was introduced. I said free education. Okay, we move. Then you cover also what will this free education bring? What will it bring to the quality of education? And then what should we do? What are the possible interventions that we can come up with to be able to improve the education? So in explaining, we are covering everything. So these are the 4 agendas of research. The question is, why do we do educational research? Those are the 4 agendas of doing it. So it depends on what you want to do. You can either do describing if that is what you want. You can do predicting only if that is what you want. You can also propose a program to improve if that is what you want. And you can also do the explanation whereby you cover all aspects of research. So we are moving. Where should research be done? Where? We have the where and by whom. But we will deal with where first. Where should the research be done, or educational research be done? So the scholars argued that it can be done in many settings. And the first one, because the research is in education, so we look at educational institutions like schools, classrooms, universities, colleges, and any other space where education is offered. And we can also do research in laboratories, libraries, city and village streets, depending on what you are looking for. So research can almost happen everywhere, depending on what you are looking for. Because you cannot just limit educational research within educational institutions, because the children that you are teaching in those schools are not staying in schools. They are coming from the community. Which means if you want to understand the impact of parental involvement, you could also visit their homes, look in the streets, look in the libraries and churches and all other areas to understand the contribution such kind of parental or community involvement has on education in schools. So it can happen in many spaces, and it depends on what you are looking for again. The second element is by whom? Who should do the research? Who is qualified to do this research? Remember, we spoke about the misconceptions of research. Some people thought it's done only by professors, by educated people, by professors, scholars, doctors, and so forth. But let's see what they are saying here. Educational research can be done by researchers, yes, by educators or teachers like myself and you. It can also be done by students. It can also be done by experts and scientists, reporters. So depending on who is looking for what, so almost everybody can do research. And it covers issues related to students, teachers, and the process of teaching and learning. So educational research can be done by all those people that want to cover issues related to education, including students, teachers, and the process of teaching and learning in schools, and the outcomes. So anybody can do research. It has also a wide scope of ranging from sociological, philosophical, economic, political foundations of education for its application in the school. So again, it has covered also different views to education. So some of this we will talk about them further when we proceed. So we have dealt with where should research be done, and we have dealt with who should do research. The second question is, we realize that everybody can do research. It can be done in schools or any other place in the society. Now the question is, how do we do this research? Can we just go out there and write anything? Or what are the procedures that should be followed to do research? There are procedures that should be followed if you have to do an educational research. And there are about 4 ways or frameworks or inquiries or methodologies. These are all concepts that we use to define those ways. And we are talking about research paradigms. Research paradigms that should be used for us to call your research a scientific research. Because if it's not scientific, then it's not worth within the space of education. If you haven't done a scientific research, then it will not be accepted in educational setting. So a research paradigm is what is called approaches. How do we do the research? It can be approaches, it can be inquiries, it can be methodologies, it can be frameworks, it can be lenses that are helping us in thinking about and doing the research. So this is the way of thinking that is helping us to be able to do our educational research. The first one is positivism and empiricism. So this type of way or approach, it's more about looking at the facts, looking at what is the kind of knowledge that we can get based on observation. And that's what we call lenses, human lenses, including what we touch. We can only use our hands, in this case, to be able to identify that knowledge. We can just depend on what we can smell to identify that knowledge, what we can taste and what we can see. So positivism is about what is touchable, what is observable for us to call it, what is measurable for us to call it knowledge. So in this case, we are looking at what is there. Have I touched it? Have I seen it? Have I smelled it for me to be able, this is knowledge? So positivism is doing that. And this is done mostly by natural scientists, those people who are looking at what is there and they don't want any explanation. Okay? So if you look at positivism and you look at prediction that we have dealt with previously, so you could see they are going hand in hand. We are looking at what is there, we observe it, we touch it, and we say this is knowledge. Secondly, we also have another way of looking at education from interpretivism. Interpretivism paradigm or framework deals with what we can interpret from what is there. If you have observed, now we have to ask, this is the movement that have happened. Why has it happened? So under interpretivism, we ask a question, why? For example, let me give you an example of late coming in the school. So late coming in the school from a positivism framework or paradigm, we will say about a number of students are late to school every day. How did they know? They went to a school, they calculated. They have seen, so they calculated, and now they get the number. That is positivism. And they will say 20% of children in one school in Namibia are being absent every day. But interpretivism will say, why are they absent? Why are they being absent every day? So here they are listening to the stories attached or shared by students that are being late every day. So under positivism, we just look at what is there. Look, 20 kids are absent every day, so they are absent. There are 20 kids absent every day. But interpretivism will say, okay, 20 children are being absent every day. Now we'll ask them, why are they absent? So under interpretivism, we look at the event and we want to talk to those people. We want to listen to the stories of those that are absenting every day to be able to understand why such events are happening in the society. Then we have number 3, critical paradigm is another lens or approach that we can use to look at education. So here they are looking at, firstly, that the research should be to the benefit of the people, okay? So it has human interest, 1. Secondly, it has to be about improving the situation. Remember, the 4 ideas I gave you previously are speaking to the same issue. Improving is falling under critical paradigm. So it should change the system. If the system is there, kids are being absent every day, 20% of them are being absent. They told you stories under interpretivism that they are being absent because perhaps they're hungry or they have to collect water from far places or they're traveling long distances to go to school. Now, under critical paradigm, what do we do here? We will say, what should we do to improve the situation of these children? So critical paradigm demands that we come up with better approaches to improve the situation or the phenomena. Number 4, post-structuralism. Structuralism. Post-structuralism paradigm goes beyond proposing better ways. It is deconstructing. That's the one of the elements of post-structuralism. looking at what is there and coming up with different views to improving the situation. Not only to say, okay, if children are coming late to school, what should we give them? Or maybe open a school hostel at the school so that all those children will come. That's a critical paradigm. You come up with an intervention, children should come to school. But under post-structuralism, deconstructing, is you have to ask whether what you have introduced is indeed necessary, is indeed useful to those kids. Because sometimes we propose better solutions that we thought are better, but because we haven't listened to the people themselves, we will not be able to come up with better solutions. So under deconstruction, you question what is there. You bring in what is not said about what you have introduced to change the system. So you reveal what is not said about the system by talking or by allowing those children, in this case, who are always late, to tell you what should happen to their situation. So the four paradigms can be used in different ways depending on what you want to look at. Positivism can help us to know the percentage, the number of students that are late every day. But it will not help us to explain everything because it's not interested in explaining. But if you want to explain, you move to interpretivism. So here, you want to listen to the words, you want to listen to the stories, to why those kids are absenting. So you can use interpretivism to understand the situation. The key concept there is understand. Again, under critical paradigm, it's not only about understanding why kids are being absent, but here, under critical, you are proposing better programs to improve the situation, the problem of late coming that you have observed, okay? And the last part is it's interested in not only you as a researcher to propose what is better for the students, but for you as a researcher to be able to talk to those latecomers and ask them what are the better ways or better mechanisms that we should use to solve their problems. So these are four ways of doing research. You can use, you can mix some of them, or you can use each one separately, depending on what you want to do. So the other aspect is, I believe, just to emphasize again on the research paradigms, is that as time goes on, we will be able to understand this better when we will continue with the debate on the processes of doing research. And it's also advisable for you to read more on these paradigms for you to get a better understanding. So we are looking at the significance and the importance of educational research. So what is the importance? Why should we do this research? Is it necessary? Because there are so many questions to why educational research should be done. Why should teachers or educators be taught educational research? Why should IOL educate teachers on how to do research? Is it necessary? We don't do, in schools we teach, isn't it? So these are some of the issues that educators are posing. And I remember my own story whereby I was also concerned, why should we do educational research as a module? Because I am a professional teacher, and all I wanted to do is to know how to teach my students better. How do I improve their marks? How do I produce better results in my field of specialization? But here we are almost encouraged as educators, if not forced, to study educational research as a course within BEd honors or within diploma in education. So we are going to find the possible answers in the following. So the central ideas is that educational research develop in teachers critical thinking. So when you have learned how to do research, it will help you to have critical thinking skills. And you'll be able to be reflective of your teaching and learning in schools. So you will see how it is necessary for all educators to do educational research. The question is, what is critical thinking? Who told you or who told them that teachers are not critical thinkers? Perhaps we have to look at what critical thinking is. Critical thinking entails looking at, in this case, looking at my teaching as a teacher in the school, looking at whether my approach or my way of teaching and learning is indeed useful for the education of my children. Are the children also benefiting from my teaching? Are they following my teaching? Am I prepared enough for them to learn from my class? That's also another element. You look at how you teach, and you look at whether there are good elements of teaching and there are bad elements of teaching. So you have to balance. You have to look at your teaching critically. It means you look at the negatives and the positives in your teaching. And if the negatives are outweighing the positives, and then you are required to change. You are required to relook, reflect on how do I teach? What is going on? What should I change? How should I improve my teaching? How should I improve, or how should I welcome all the students in my class so that they will learn? So that's what you do when you do critical thinking and critical reflection on your teaching. So research centers in developing critical thinking in educators. It means it helps you to look back. You finish teaching, you look back and say, okay, how was my teaching today? Have I achieved my goals? Not only that I have completed the syllabus, no, that my learners have learned. That's one. By also perhaps looking and asking the kids themselves whether they have really gained what you wanted to teach them. Whether all of them, not only those who you call fast learners, but even those that are not, that we call slow learners, why are they not catching up? Is it my fault? If it's my fault, which aspect am I failing to achieve? So research, educational research, helps teachers to look at the work critically, and the intention of looking at it critically is to improve and contribute to quality education. Number two, to make classroom teaching more independent and more responsible for the development, dissemination, and evaluation of the curriculum. So when we as teachers get the ways of doing research, we use those methods to look at our teaching, as I have just alluded to earlier, teaching in the class. So you have to look again at your teaching, and you have to be responsible for better approaches, better teaching into your class. So you develop your teaching in the class, and the intention is to make sure that education or your teaching and learning is helpful for the kids. Not to fail them, but to help them pass. All of them, both fast and slow learners. And again, it helps us when we do research to be able to share. Disseminate is just to share what we gained in our research with the public. And also to help also evaluate whether the curriculum which was introduced by the government is indeed useful for the needs of our children. So educators will be able to propose to the government to change. Number three, educational research provides teachers with essential knowledge of the classroom inquiry and how to improve it. So when you have acquired the skills of doing educational research, you will be able to really gain knowledge, because when you do the research, you can also perhaps look at others, because you have to read books as well on teaching. So when you do research, you search again. That's what research means. Research. Search is looking for something. But here you keep looking. You keep searching for better ways of improving your teaching. If you look at how others are teaching, perhaps by reading books that are written by other researchers or educators elsewhere, by visiting some schools and look at how they teach, that will help give you more knowledge and be able to help you to teach better. Perhaps you might even get some insights from your colleagues elsewhere when you engage them on how do they teach mathematics, which is a problematic module or subject in Namibia, where many of our children are failing to acquire such skills. You can talk to other people within the country, outside the country or elsewhere in the world by reading the research books that are written by those people and help you to improve your teaching methods and perhaps contribute to the good performance of mathematics in Namibia. So you see, research is necessary. And it helps also teachers to uncover strategies, as I said, to improve their practices. When you go again, search again, ask questions, read books, and talk to other people in different countries, how they improve their mathematics, it will help you to come up with better ways of improving your teaching. Again, it is also helpful, educational research is also helpful to find possible solutions to educational problems, which I have just alluded to now. I gave you an example of mathematics as a problem, but there are also other problems like absenteeism, high dropouts, teenage pregnancy, which was just recently also alluded to from Kavango, one of the highest region where teenage pregnancy is indeed escalating. So what are we saying? When we do research as educators, we might be able to find possible solutions in different areas. You can take absenteeism. When you start doing research, you will talk to those people that are being absent. You will also read books on the same field. You will also read books on the idea of absenteeism, the contributing factor to absenteeism. So by doing research, you'll be able to find possible solutions to such problems. And when you find a solution to absenteeism, for example, you will then be able to achieve 100% or 90% attendance and perhaps pass from our future leaders. So by doing educational research, educators might help to find solutions to the problem. So you don't need to be an expert to do research. You don't need to be a professor in the university to do research. You need to be an educator who is aware of his role or her role in improving the education system through educational research. And the last point there, it provides knowledge and information that permits educators or teachers to achieve educational goals and use the most effective methods. So again, this is just connecting to what we have discussed earlier to say, when you do research, you will not only be limited to what you were taught in universities or school or colleges, but you are expanding your space. You are expanding your space. You are expanding your knowledge. You are getting new information every day in improving teaching. I'm giving you an example of the recent development in IT, information technology. Schools are required to use computers, to use iPads, tablets, to use even phones in teaching. So if you as an educator is not acquainted or informed about information technology, how will you help students to learn using computers? You see, that's an example. So as an educator, you have firstly to equip yourself or to give yourself knowledge and information about how do we improve or how do we use information technology. If you could do your research, you even find that cell phones that are currently very destructive in teaching and learning can be used to teach. Kids can be encouraged to go to use Facebook, for example, to be able to do assignments, to be able to do group works. So instead of students getting lost into the world of pictures and chatting on Facebook or WhatsApp, but you will then encourage them to use the same space to do assignments, to communicate with you when they are not coming, to ask you questions as a teacher, because you are also acquainted with a use of technology. You have a cell phone that you can also chat with your students to perhaps encourage them and guide them in a particular assignment. So you see, doing research is necessary, because if you do not know how to use it, and you do not know how we can use WhatsApp or Facebook for education, you can do research. You can read from other institutions to how are they using the cell phones to do exactly that. So it can only happen when really we allow students, we allow ourselves to be educated, and most especially to do educational research. because research is not only there for some people and for some problems. It's for us educators to be able to find how other people are doing. How can I use what they are doing to improve what I'm doing here? How do I learn from maybe people in maybe Tanzania, for example? You can also check by reading books and by reading articles to see what other people are doing in America, for example, in black communities. What are they in, or any other communities, or any community similar to your community? How are they using information technologies to improve the situation and to improve education in that manner? So what am I saying? I'm saying educational research is very important for understanding the problems that are facing our educational communities. It is necessary for teachers to understand education better, to improve the current knowledge, because knowledge is always in a changing process. So if you do not acquaint yourself with the current change or trend in education, you will not be able to educate students better. So it's necessary for an educator or a teacher to be able to do educational research, to get methods, to get approaches that will help them to improve educational practices. And also, the society which is so much faced with so much problems, you will see that it is necessary to be able to identify problems like high dropouts, teenage pregnancies, mathematic failure, English, and many other problems that are facing our communities. And when we find them, we'll be able to come up with better strategies to say, how do we improve this? We cannot wait for the government to solve problems. It is us educators to be able to be equipped with skills and methods that will help us to inform the government on how do we change, how do we improve our systems. And I think in this manner, we are almost moving toward the end of our introduction, and I hope through this engagement, first lecture engagement on research, you have picked very central aspect to educational research. You have picked the 5 units that will be covered. You have now picked the introduction to research on the concept of research first, and that there are different meanings to the concept research, just like any other concept. There are different meanings. There is no one meaning to a word, just like any other. So you have to understand all these meanings and see how is research necessary in education. So you will see that education as a field of study requires educators to do constant research. Why? Because there are so many problems or challenges that are facing education on a daily basis. And we can only be able to deal with such problems when we do research. You cannot do your teaching in the same manner throughout life. The fact that the society is changing, the fact that the world is changing, and with the introduction of technology, we have to learn. We have to do research so that we improve our teaching and learning, we make education relevant to our new generation, and we have to improve our way so that we will contribute to quality education in our societies. So this is just one element of it, and we are going to proceed with other aspects of teaching as we continue with the debate on introduction to educational research. I wish you have some questions, but I believe I will be able to answer them as we proceed with other aspects in the following lectures. So thank you so much. We have come to the end of lecture 1, and I hope you follow and you will ask questions. You go back to your readings as well. You have the book, read and get more information on what we have just done, and I thank you so much.